Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Primetime Rundown powered by Streamyard. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a new day here on the Eastern Observer. Alongside Ian Schreier, Patrick McCormick, I'm Joey Jarzinka. It's a new day because our two guys, my two co-hosts, are not with us any longer. A little bit of uncertainty moving forward, but we are extremely glad to still bring you everything here on the Blackjack Media Network, the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, on Zingo, as well as Periscope, all of the above. Just one more quick thing since the last time we were on, the Eastern Observer, the Blackjack Media Networks do not condone racism, hatred, etc. So for that, we will be seeing, we might not be seeing Tyler Adelbach nor Nick Partain due to their insensitive remarks to one another. Fellas, Ian, Patrick McCormick, ladies and gentlemen, Pat, this is your second time on here. Let's get rolling. How are you, buddy?
I was doing great. I'm very happy to be back until Pete Alonso just hit a 3-run home run to tie the game at 4. But I am very happy to talk to you, Joey, and very excited to see Ian again. So I'm excited to be on the show and talk sports with you guys.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool. We've all worked together in some way. Obviously the way Ian and I met was really a cool thing. And then how we, got to meet each other again or see each other again in St. John's is pretty cool. And then how me and Pat, it's all crazy. It's such a small world, and in this area here, we're all here on a podcast together. I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of it. Ian Schreier, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm still wondering how you're still asking me to come back on. I mean, this is look, it's really a pleasure to come back on, to have me on, and for me to offer up, my information, and for me to help out this show. It's a great show so far. I've enjoyed being on it, and look forward to talking more with you and Patrick here tonight.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, but again, for those that are just coming on, this is episode number 31 of the Primetime Rundown, powered by StreamYard. It is a lot. There's so much to talk about. Obviously, right now, we have the Yankees and the Mets going on. Right now, it is the Subway Series. There's so much to talk about in the world of baseball. Let's get to it, fellas. And right now, the way it looks is that the Mets really are just an absolute dumpster fire. And Ian Schreier knows all about it because he's a diehard Mets fan. And God help him, that's for sure, because Ian, I didn't know Brody was spelt with a Y until the Wilpons were the ones to come out with that, and I guess they forgot to put it into Grammarly.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to know when you're the owners that hire your general manager that you should know the correct pronunciation of or I should say the correct spelling of your general manager's first name.
What a disaster!
I mean, if this is the end, it appears it's going to be the end for Fred and Jeff Wilpon. I mean, what an ending for them. I mean, final bids are due by Monday. We'll see what Steve Cohen does. We'll see what the J-Rod team does. We'll see if they decide to drop out, if the Blitzer team comes in and drops down a lower offer. But how about the fact both teams, the Mets and the Marlins last night, had every intent of going out there, protesting and walking out. And Jeff Wilpon says, well, we were planning on sending the team back out there for another hour. And then Brody's like, well, Rob Manfred doesn't get it. Well, it appears, I mean, everybody has their own issues with Rob Manfred, and certainly he's a lot of these issues that he has are self-inflicted. But it seems like Brody meant to intend that more towards his own owner than he did to the commissioner of baseball, because it wasn't Manfred's idea, and in fact was Jeff Wilpon's. And like you said, Joey, it's just more and more of a dumpster fire for this franchise. As a diehard Met fan, I can't wait for a change. I'll tell you, before the Alonso 3-run homer, I texted a friend and said it just looks like this team is just flat out quitting on the organization because they're just not hitting. But I still don't have a lot of faith in this team right now. But right, like you said, they're a mess right now, and I just can't wait for new ownership at this point.
So Ian, Joe just texted me he lost power. I guess we could talk some baseball or talk some hockey or wait for him.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess what's your take, Pat, with respect to the Mets right now?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, they have some good young pieces and just hoping they can put it together. I mean, just this year in general is really tough, and you see it on the Yankee front too. It's real, from a college baseball season, everything is bunched together, and for these guys to get used to what's a marathon to a sprint with a bunch of double headers now, it's very easy to lose momentum very quickly. And if you don't have a guy in the room to get everyone going, bring everyone together, and help them get the wheels rolling on a short season to get into an extended playoff, you don't, as the Mets just go ahead 5-4 in a Dominic Smith home run, you may lose everything. So it's tough for them, but maybe the Yankees get them going as they're up 5-4 right now in the sixth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize here. We are actually on generator power here, so I know Ian was just talking, so we will not be getting back to what we were just talking about there. Ian, I do apologize. Patrick, I do apologize to all of our viewers out there. I do apologize. Can't do anything about that. The internet just went dead. We are on, as I said, generator power, so thankfully all of this here is hooked up, but I don't know. I guess it's with the upcoming inclement weather. I'm guessing. I don't know. But again, we do apologize for the technical difficulties that are clearly going on in the Long Island area. Don't know really what else to say with that. So Ian, just to go back to what we were talking about just a couple of seconds ago, I did get the notification first off that Dominic Smith actually hit a solo shot just a couple of seconds ago. So right now it's 5-4 in favor of the Yankees right now. So Pat, let's actually go to you now. How do you feel about this?
About what, the Yankees or the fact they're losing to the Mets?
That.
I have a very simple approach to this, Joe. Just get into the playoffs. With an 18 playoff, I hope the Yankees are healthy enough to get in there, get their guns back, and just go full out to make a run at the World Series. Right now, it's really tough. I mean, they're still in a great position to be in the top 8, but it's tough watching them now. Chad Green blew a game in Atlanta. He blew another game today, and it's just Judge played a game. He's back on the DL. Shell is hurt. Torres is hurt. The list, Stanton's hurt. The list of everyone who's hurt is ridiculous. It's like last year again in this shortened season. Just have to hope they find a way to sneak in. Everyone's healthy and make a run once the playoffs start. I mean, I was talking to Ian a little bit while you lost power about all these double headers and all. It's really tough to play a double header with a shortened bench and guys from the alternate site coming up. I know everyone goes through their trials and tribulations throughout a year, but with this happening and the way the Yankees are built right now, it's just get into playoffs and see what happens then, because right now I feel like they're going to go up and down. To have youngsters who don't have that much experience, and 5 or 6 of their main players are on the IL right now.
Yeah, and a lot for the Yankees too, Pat. A lot of it is also built off the fact of how strong coming into the season or the last couple of seasons their bullpen has needed to be, and the fact that they're not getting the same performances that they've expected from their bullpen. The fact that the injuries for the second straight year have piled up on this team. You have Brett Gardner today hitting third. So it's really just tough right now for the Yankees in terms of health. And we saw it last year. We see it this year again. I mean, Garrett Cole has not yet replicated his numbers last year from Houston, but obviously he's still Garrett Cole, so that still holds a lot of weight. But right now, the health of the Yankees and the bullpen of the Yankees are enormous question marks.
Jake Marisnik just going yard. So Chad Green, as they say, just doesn't have it today.
Yeah, it's
and you don't realize how important Tommy Kahnle was until he went out. That's another arm that you just have to fill in, and Kahnle was very important. And now you're going to, if the Yankees get a lead in the game, which I assume they will again, you have to go to Aroldis Chapman, who doesn't have a very heavy workload because he missed the beginning of the year with COVID. So there's a lot of questions in the starting rotation. There's a lot of questions in the bullpen. That's why I'm just hoping they get healthy, figure it out with the remaining a few games in the year. It's more than halfway over, I think, and hopefully in the playoffs they're locked and ready to go.
Which is absolutely crazy to say, is that the season is almost halfway done, which is just absurd. Time really does fly, fellas. The Yankees need pitching. That's exactly what it comes down to. The injured list looks like this. Aaron Judge was just placed back on the IL this morning. DJ LeMahieu still on the IL, left thumb sprain. Gleyber Torres, left hamstring or quadriceps strain. James Paxton, grade 1 strain of his left forearm. Giancarlo Stanton strained left hamstring. That man can never stay healthy. Tommy Kahnle, as Patrick just said, Tommy John surgery. Zach Britton as well. The injured list is just extremely depleting the New York Yankees. And right now, we really did not have them on our little topic chart here. But going back to we were talking about the Mets just a few minutes ago. As we did say, I did lose power over here. So right now I'm hoping that I hope we get back on soon. I hear the thing outside buzzing. So clearly we're still powerless here. Again, the way it looks is that the Yankees might have to trade Clint Frazier for the first time, since acquiring him. It's been a rocky road for the former Cleveland Indian prospect. It's really tough, guys. The way Clinton Frazier, the way his path has gone, he's finally getting playing time, but does it continue with another team? Does it continue here? I don't think it continues here. I think they're going to have no choice but to trade him, possibly Miguel Andujar. But then that leads us into the next question of, is he the biggest name with the trade deadline coming within about 100 or so hours away?
I would say it's hard to tell, Joey. It's really hard to tell because of the expanded playoff structure. You don't really know at this point right now who's buyers and who's sellers. A week ago, they're talking about how the San Francisco Giants are going to sell off Kevin Gausman. They're going to sell off their rotation. Now, a week later, they're talking about how they're going to be buyers at the deadline. So it hasn't been like it's been over the full 162-game season when you know a team is done and that they're going to start selling off pieces. It's a 60-game season with 30 games in. Everybody right now has a shot at the playoffs or is within striking distance of the playoffs. So if that's the case, every team wants to make a run. The only two names right now that have kind of been floated around a little bit are Mike Clevinger from Cleveland and Trevor Bauer from the Reds. I know a few weeks ago we discussed the Reds, and myself and Nick had both said that we just really didn't think Cincinnati was there yet. Bauer is a rental piece, so Bauer's done after the year unless you sign him to a long-term extension. His last start wasn't so great, and then the issue with Clevinger is the baggage. That comes with the fact that him and his teammate Plesac decided to go out and really be reckless with respect to COVID-19. So
it took matters into their own hands in terms of what they really thought that they could do amid this whole pandemic.
Correct. I mean, you obviously know that the performances that Clevinger can have on a nightly basis if he's in your rotation. So the problem is do you want to take on that potential baggage? I don't know at this point. I don't know if I think if a team is desperate enough for starting pitching, they'll throw something out there to Cleveland. But remember, the Indians are also in the thick of a divisional race. Do they want to give him up? There's been nothing to suggest that they want to give him up. They optioned him to the alternate training site, but there's been no discussion. So right now, all you're hearing really are whispers with only 3 days to go until the trade deadline?
Yeah, which really, again, brings up my next point is that it's tough to see with the San Francisco Giants because they have no idea what they're doing, clearly. And on top of it, too, guys, just a few years ago, they were in, they were winning World Series every other year. That was the thing, was that, were they going to win a World Series this year? Were they going to win it next year? Whatever. It wasn't the way it was 2-4-6 or whatever it was when they won the World Series every other year. With Bruce Bochy as their skipper. They then obviously signed Jeff Samardzija. They signed Johnny Cueto, who's another one that could be on the block. And they're looking for an absolute revamp of their farm system because their farm system is beyond trash. And it reminds me, similar, guys, of the Los Angeles Angels. Where they only have 10 wins and I think a little over 20 losses right now. And the way it looks is that they're not going to do anything, even though they have Anthony Rendon in the lineup or they just signed him to a massive contract. Albert Pujols is slowly going downhill. Shohei Ohtani can't pitch because he was almost about to have, I believe, Tommy John surgery. Last year, he had some problems, or 2 years ago with his arm, where it was basically about to fall off, and he had to be a designated hitter, or he had to be in the batter's box. There's a lot going on out west, and it's not that good. So you were just saying, Ian, about Kevin Gausman, but again, I think that really Johnny Cueto should be up there in terms of who you have to ship out to get a decent return for. And he's got some years left, too, on his contract.
I'm not sure how old Cueto is at this point. I mean, his ERA, I mean, he pitched against the Dodgers the other night, and got lit up for about 5 or 6 runs. I mean, listen, when the Giants took on Cueto, you were also taking on a guy with a little bit of age. I mean, you're taking him a little bit more on reputation. But going back to what you were saying about the Angels, the problem with the Angels continues to be the same problem they have every year. They have no starting pitching.
Right.
That's always been the problem with the Angels. They have the best player in baseball. They signed one of the best free agents in the offseason, or I would say arguably probably the best hitter on the free agent market at the end of last season. They have Shohei Ohtani. Pujols has been on the downturn for a while. Let's leave it at that. But this team has no pitching. I think that I look and go figure. Mickey Callaway is their pitching coach. I think their bullpen record is like 0-8 with an ERA around 6. I know when they brought Joe Madden in, they expected him to really help turn around this team and finally get them back to the playoffs, get Trout into the playoffs. But with that pitching staff and that bullpen right now, he can't do anything with it.
No, there's really nothing that you can do. Andrew Heaney, Dylan Bundy, they could also be on the trading block too. But also we have to realize too is that everything is going to be up in the air. Why? Because of this new 16-team playoff format. Right now, you can look at the American League side, and right now the number 8 seed is the Baltimore Orioles. Go figure. Go figure. But, and also now, Taijuan Walker was just traded also to Toronto, so they're also buyers. When really they're I think like 11-11 or something like that, or 12-12, or I think they're right at 500. Pat, your thoughts on this whole dilemma in terms of deadline acquisitions or sellers?
I think the deadline's going to be very quiet. I mean, you go back to the Yankees. Is it really worth trading a Clint Frazier? Because you don't have enough outfielders healthy enough to fill in for a spot with Judge and Stanton out. And if the Yankees were to trade someone, is it worth trading a highly touted prospect to get a guy with, are you willing to pay him if he has multiple years on his contract? Or if he's a rental, is it willing to give up a lot for 3 to 4 starts plus the playoffs if they make it? So I just think there's a lot going into everything, and it may not be worth to make a trade if you're going to give up a lot and get a rental for a short period of time in this shortened season where everyone has a shot to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that you said that. I read a few articles that the buying, the selling, we could see it at a historic low. And, I mean, obviously to shut up Jeff Passan from ESPN, Pittsburgh and Chicago made a deal. Jared Dyson, 36-year-old speedster. They traded him for international signing money. Taijuan Walker from Seattle to Toronto. Why? Because I thought that LA's pitching was bad, Ian. Toronto's pitching is because of injuries. It's not that bad, but it's injury-based.
Well, remember, Pearson and Shoemaker are both on the 10-day IL. They're both expected to come back. I think Pearson's due back before Shoemaker, I think. I think one's due back in about 2 days, another one due back in about 3 or 4 to come off the IL. So getting them back is going to be huge. I mean, Shoemaker's been a nice piece for them in the middle of that rotation. I know their overall record might not suggest that, but from where that rotation looked at the start of the season, he's been a real nice piece for them. The Taijuan Walker trade is really just he was traded for cash considerations. It's a back-end rotation guy to really help, with guys like Trent Thornton's also on the injured list. So right now the only healthy guys they have are guys like Ryu and Tanner Roar. But going after a guy like Walker, who's a back-end guy who maybe you throw him in. Maybe he's going to become your 5 starter, or maybe if you want to stretch your rotation out and go to 6 arms, you could do something like that. It shows, A, they're not ready to call up their next big pitcher after Pearson, which is one of the prospects the Mets sent over in the Stroman trade, which was Simeon Woods Richardson. And then you have a guy in the bullpen. I went to college with his brother, Anthony Kay, who right now is in the bullpen for the Blue Jays, who was also a starting pitching prospect for the Mets. So the bullpen for the Blue Jays has actually been one of the real nice bright spots for them. So I could see why maybe they don't want to move Kay out of that bullpen role right now, and why they maybe took a chance on a guy right now with a 4 ERA, maybe playing, with Toronto, with a team that's a little more established offensively, will help. But it's a back end rotation move. Like I said, for cash considerations, it's only going to help to really, kind of stretch out their bullpen for a team right now that does have 2 injuries, but 2 of those guys are coming back within the week.
It's tough. We look at their record, 15-14. Hyun-Jun Ryu, Tanner Roark are the only starting pitchers right now that are signed into 2021. Shoemaker, also from the Los Angeles Angels as well, just a couple of years ago. He came back from Tommy John surgery. Toronto, as I said, 15-14. Taijuan Walker, 2-2 with a 4 ERA in 5 starts this year for Seattle, and a career record of 33-33 with a 3.95 ERA. Guys, besides Mike Clevenger, who else do you guys see as someone that could be, or the hottest name on the market now that Jared Dyson, Taijuan Walker are gone? And Jared Dyson is not really a hot name, but he does fill a need for Chicago. Who else do you guys see, possibly from Boston?
I was reading the Reds and Trevor Bauer, but then I read again today that the Reds are staying in it and seeing if they can make the playoffs. Anyone else? I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, throw out, because everyone's in it, and it's just really hard to figure out if a guy's going to make it or if he's not going to make it. So I really think it's going to be silent.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, Ian, we're going to get to you in just a second. I want to throw a name out here that I believe could really be helpful to a lot of teams, and it's 2 outfielders on the same team. Now, why would we say something along those lines? Well, because they already have a solid 3. Well, really 2, so maybe just 1, but we'll still give it would be an or situation. Jackie Bradley Jr. or Kevin Pillar. The Red Sox, they only have 10 wins. I think they're 10-20 something. They're 10 and something. They're 10 games under 500. Their pitching is no longer. They need to revamp their farm system. They need to have a better bullpen. They have no starting pitching outside of Nathan Eovaldi. You have to do something, and you could potentially get something for a Jackie Bradley Jr. who has come up in the past.
I think
agree or disagree.
The names that I've been hearing out of Boston, I think John Heyman tweeted this the other day, was that less than a 25% chance that the Red Sox trade JD Martinez and a less than 20% chance that the Red Sox trade Xander Bogaerts. Those might be the names. I mean, those might be the names you might see move, just because if the Red Sox are really planning on finally rebuilding, do they want to, trade Bogaerts, JD Martinez, Rafael Devers, those kind of cornerstone pieces of the team. I mean, Jackie Bradley Jr.'s name, you're right, Joey, has been treaded around the league a lot, especially for a guy who I think 2 years ago hit like 184 and was like he'd be a nice glove out in center field. He would really boost a team's defense. But I really haven't heard too much coming out of Boston at this point. The only thing I've really heard has been more along the lines of the JD and Bogaerts news, but I wouldn't even really call it news at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough to see, it's not even tough, well, especially for me and Patrick, because we're both diehard Yankees fans, but the way it is right now in Boston, they have, I think it's fair to say now that this is probably rock bottom for them, and they're not coming out of it for the next couple of years. It's really, like I said, it's a shame for them, but there's another name, fellas, and even though that this closer left with forearm tightness, I think we all know who we're speaking of, Keon Kela from Pittsburgh. I personally believe that he could potentially go to either Chicago, San Diego, or the LA Dodgers. Why? Because the LA Dodgers, their bullpen outside of Kenley Jansen, Joe Kelly, no good. And Josh Hader is also on the block, and San Diego apparently is looking at him now. San Diego could potentially be a top seed in the National League this year. What a way to start the new decade and conclude 2020.
I mean, I think any adding of a bullpen arm is it's necessary for a team if they're short. If you look at now, it's a lot of double headers being played. So instead of playing 9 innings a day without extra innings, you're playing 14 innings a day. And it's really tough for starting pitchers to get over that hump. And the more arms you have, the better off you are, especially during this push towards the playoffs. I mean, the Yankees have 2 doubleheaders. We're going to have 3 doubleheaders this week. The more arms, the better. If anyone else is like them, so if you're pushing towards the division win or pushing towards that push for the playoffs, the more arms, the better. And just to add on the Padres, they're a lot of fun to watch.
I mean, who thought you would hear a name like Josh Hader on the block, or think that the Milwaukee Brewers are struggling to win games right now is beyond belief. I mean, I've always had questions about their starting pitching, but I've always considered them to be a contender in the Central, especially in a division right now where the Cardinals are playing 500 ball, the Cubs are in a tailspin right now. The Reds and the Pirates aren't playing good ball. So, I mean, you would think the team that would really try to take advantage of it and is healthy is Milwaukee. But to hear Josh Hader's name on the block, yeah, that would make a lot of sense for a team whose closer entering the season, Kirby Yates, has struggled. Drew Pomeranz has filled in nicely. I'm sure if you could get a guy like Hader to pitch the 9th and to push Pomeranz up to the 8th and really stretch out that bullpen and make it better, I mean, I think San Diego would have to give up a lot to get him. I don't think Milwaukee's going to, even at the trade deadline, is going to give him up for anything cheap. But it would be quite a move for the Padres for sure.
I don't think they would entertain anything less than I don't even know. I can't even imagine what San Diego could potentially offer. I mean, don't get me wrong. They do have a solid system. AJ Preller has done a good job rebuilding his farm team. And we do remember from a few years ago when they traded the whole squad for Justin Upton. They gave up so many players that depleted their system. So this is the time where clearly they're in buy mode. They're in win now. Well, not win now mode yet, but I believe they're about another year or two away from that. But now is the time to start. Going back, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, Joey. I had nothing to say.
Going back to baseball again, or staying on baseball, fellas. Just a few days ago, about 3 days ago, we're completely running out of days here, and in August, and we're losing our minds with what day is which and when things happened and whatever it was. But Lucas Giolito pitched 2020's first no-hitter. And 9 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts versus Pittsburgh on this past Tuesday. And just before that, fellas, on the 20th of August against Detroit, he pitched 7 innings, 3 hits, 13 strikeouts, and a single walk. A combined 26 strikeouts in his last 2 starts. This man is going to be, and already is, one of the best starting pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. And you can thank the Washington Nationals for that one.
How can you not love the redemption story that is Lucas Giolito? Let's not forget that Lucas Giolito went to the White Sox in a trade for Adam Eaton. I like Adam Eaton as a player. He's a nice leadoff hitter for the Nationals. But long-term, Chicago got a steal, albeit the fact that Giolito, his first season, was probably one of the worst pitchers in baseball. And then the following year, he wins 14 games. His ERA is just below 4. I mean, for a guy who's young, I mean, the upside potential is great. And his first start this year, I forgot who it was against. I think it was against a division opponent. It wasn't against the Tigers. I forgot who it was against, but he gave up about 5 or 6 runs. It felt like everything was going back the other way for Giolito. And now in his last 2 starts between Detroit and Pittsburgh, albeit the fact that they're 2 teams that are struggling and were expected to struggle this year, I just love the fact, as a baseball fan, and I watched the last 2 innings of his no-hitter, I love the fact that the dark cloud that has plagued our country for the last 5 months, and sport always brings us together, is that we had a no-hitter. And look, I'm an advocate for masks. I'm an advocate for social distancing. I love the fact that for just 1 minute, the fact that we just kind of put that to the side and let them shower him and celebrate him for the fact that he threw a no-hitter, cardboard cutouts or not, it's still baseball history, and it was great to see. And it just distracted us from real life just for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, it's really good to see something positive happen in the world today. I digress because I don't want to keep going on with negativity. This is a place of peace and positivity where we completely tune out everything that's going on in the outside world just for a couple hours. It really was good to see. Pat, your thoughts on Lucas Giolito and the first no-no of 2020?
I thought Ian said it perfectly. I mean, we had people all around the country rallying around this guy throwing a no-hitter, and granted, his last 2 starts were against bad teams. You still have to get people out, and he's been doing that. And sometimes all people need is a fresh scenery, and he's getting that in Chicago, so it's really cool. And I'm very happy for all those cardboard cutouts to say they saw the first no-hitter of 2020.
Yeah.
Plus, Joey, don't forget the Seinfeld connection to Giolito.
There you go. Yes, exactly.
That up on this show.
Yeah. So he knew that. So Pat knew that we had to bring that up, and to all of our viewers out there, everyone knows that we are just Seinfeld fans on this show. And whoever we bring on, it's either listen, you can be a Friends fan, but please, this is Seinfeld territory here. Susan Ross's father in Seinfeld, if you know, is Lucas Giolito's biological grandfather. I think that's pretty cool. So that was that's something else there. Now we look at, I want to stick to Adam Eaton for a second, because, we look back to that trade and you say to yourself, well, did you believe, Ian, that Mike Rizzo at the time thought that there could be a possibility that Bryce Harper does not come back, so you make this deal 1-for-1 and say, okay, Adam Eaton is going to be our starting right fielder when Bryce Harper leaves because we can't afford him? Do you think that was in his head? How difficult is that? Because right now, if we look at obviously statistics right now, Adam Eaton, he missed a year when he tore his ACL a couple of years ago, but he's got a ring to prove it. Obviously, Lucas Giolito is still young, and the Chicago White Sox are in complete rebuild mode, and they're slowly going whatever. But who right now, do we have a say where, okay, Chicago's won the trade thus far? We won't know for a few years down the road.
Well, there's a lot to say. I'm going to come back to the Eaton point, but there's a lot to say also about the White Sox. And I'm just going to make a quick point here about the fact that the White Sox are probably, if they keep up the pace they're on right now with the lack thereof of starting pitching they really have behind Giolito. Keuchel's had a solid year. I give him a lot of credit. I wrote him off this year. But they're probably going to be the second best team in their division behind Minnesota. But with regards to the Eaton trade, I don't remember exactly what their stats were in terms of batting average and WAR when the trade happened from Eaton to come to Washington from leaving Chicago, and what Bryce's average or WAR was. But you must have been talking about a difference of about 50 points in terms of average. You couldn't have expected the same kind of production at that time, that when you're saying, oh, well, Bryce Harper's going to leave. We know that we have a guy in Juan Soto that's going to produce. We know we have a guy who's going to be departing in Anthony Rendon. So we just have to take a run at this and win the World Series. Now, you're right. He's got the ring. So you can't really argue that. But at the time, to me, it was like Giolito was thought of as, after Scherzer and after Strasburg, was thought of as Washington's future in their pitching rotation. So it was really hard to believe that they were trading a guy who they thought was their next big star for a career 250 hitter, for a guy that you were hoping was going to be Bryce Harper's replacement. You knew, I mean, first off, Adam Eaton's a leadoff hitter, if not a number 2 hitter. Bryce Harper's a middle of the order guy. So you knew you weren't getting the exact same kind of player. You were hoping maybe to supplement it to some degree. But initially, I thought I thought the White Sox initially in that trade completely fleeced the Nationals, because I'm like, let's see what this kid has when he finally, blooms, and we're starting to see it.
Yeah, it's crazy to see also, Ian, because you originally had Trey Turner as your leadoff guy when Adam Eaton was down for the count. Then you also had Michael A. Taylor, who was there as well. And, at the time, well, it was him. Then you had, obviously, Juan Soto. Victor Robles came into the picture after and really became, a prominent figure in the nation's capital. But it's unfortunate to see right now that they really could have had Giolito potentially as their number 3. Or even once Scherzer and Strasburg were done, he would be the number 1 for sure. But I could say right now, I guess, if I'm the Washington Nationals, I guess it paid off thus far, because there's no Bryce Harper. You didn't have to pay him all that money, and you had a couple of clutch hits from Adam Eaton too in the postseason as well.
I mean, could you imagine a top 4 in that rotation? I mean, right now that lineup can barely hit, with the exception of Soto. But could you imagine a top 4, Scherzer, Strasburg, if healthy, Patrick Corbin, and Lucas Giolito, your 4-star?
No.
That's a scary thought.
No, I can't. I can't think of that. And not only that, it would only last for a couple of years too, because they wouldn't be able to afford all 4 of them. No shot.
Right.
So as Patrick said earlier about Warren Frost, this one is from the Rye, obviously. So great episode, and may Warren Frost rest in peace. Going back to, we were discussing about the hot mic situation earlier with the Mets. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the Reds, and then of course someone in Fox Sports, Tom Brenneman, was caught saying a homophobic slur on air. He is indefinitely suspended from Fox Sports Ohio. Most likely will be off the air with the national games on the NFL. Again, not speaking about that, but these hot mic situations, Ian and Patrick, it just shows that you're never safe when wherever you go with work, with whatever it may be. The same thing goes with Brodie Van Wagenen. And regardless of what was going on, caught speaking poorly about Commissioner Rob Manfred with everything going on today. What is the common denominator here about hot mics? And because we are all in the college field, and we all have media experience, all 3 of us. And I know I can tell you right now, as a play-by-play guy, once you get into the parking lot or into the car outside of your house, the microphone is on. Wherever you go, no, you're not safe. There is no privacy. And Brodie Van Wagenen really should have known, in my opinion. You're speaking at Citi Field. You're speaking downstairs in the media area. I believe, Ian, correct me.
That's the interview room. That's the interview room. Yeah, that's the interview. That's the post-game press conference interview room where, if COVID-19 was not a thing, that the press would be sitting there interviewing Rojas or Terry Collins or Mickey Callaway. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is even worse, because now we look at it here as media professionals, and you say to yourself, well, okay, there's probably wires, there's probably cameras that are still, you figure, hooked up there for future use. Again, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, if I am, and for those that are watching, please comment at us, because we'd love to hear your thoughts about Brodie with a Y. The situation is a disaster, and it stinks because, again, as I said earlier, once you get into the vehicle, you go to work, you don't say anything bad about your commissioner. You don't say anything bad about your boss. You don't say anything bad, period. You should be doing your work and getting the hell out of there. Clearly, Brody did not learn or did not realize what happened just a couple of weeks ago in Cincinnati. We spoke about earlier, and I know just before my power went out, Ian was still speaking about that, but I just wanted to add one quick thing into this before we head into the NFL. Learn from it. Not only learn from it, once you are in the building, in the interview room, where there's microphones, there's speakers, there's wires everywhere. There could be, and not only that, you're also in this field where people are looking to find something bad to happen with you. You are a part of the New York Mets, a dysfunctional franchise. No offense to Ian, but we all know it's true. A dysfunctional franchise that clearly cannot take any bad public relations, any bad PR, nothing, because they can't even get it right.
This really, and I'm going to speak from use a little bit of an analogy here. When someone goes out for a job or goes to interview for a job, I know this seems like a completely off cuff, but in a way, it's a little bit of an analogy.
It doesn't. It's perfect. I know exactly. I have what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah. Think of the way that you present yourself on social media when you go for a job interview. Think about the way you post pictures of yourself, the comments you post on Facebook, the comments you post on Twitter. Everything today is public knowledge. You think you've deleted it off the internet. The internet, when people do background checks on you, they find everything. And if they find something they don't like, the way you present yourself, the way you go out with your friends, the way you do anything, you should always be presenting yourself in a professional manner, as if, to quote you, Joey, as if the microphones are on, as if the cameras are rolling. And that's the way, in this world, we should all be living our lives, especially when we're making all this money. We're all trying to keep our jobs, and there are people who want these people's jobs, and it's all about maintaining that professional atmosphere.
Exactly right. Go ahead, Pat.
Just from my experience, if I could add, at work, we're lucky enough to have great student workers, and when we're in the press box, we're in a very tight area together, and Ian could knows what I'm talking about, where we are. Everything's tight. The play-by-play announcer is 4 seats over from the person running the broadcast, and in between there's 4 other people doing the scoreboard, someone helping me spot. And the first thing I teach them is, guys, I know we want to have fun and have a good time, but once we press record on the broadcast, we have to keep it calm just in case something is picked up over the microphone. And we teach that from the beginning. It's one of the first things we teach them, just in case something were to happen and someone were to hear them. Because there's times where I'm watching the broadcast we're doing, and I'm not the most soft-spoken person in the world, and I'm reiterating an assist or a shot that happened, and you hear me right over the play-by-play guy. So it's just teaching people early on, once you step into the box and once the mic's on and the record is going, just watch what you say, because you never know who picks it up.
And it really, every time, fellas, that I see this happen, and because with it being the second time that this has happened in as many weeks, I'm speechless, because you work so hard for where you're going to, and in one false swoop, gone. Tom Brenneman is a broadcaster that has Hall of Fame genes in him. Mm-hmm. Marty Brenneman is the Hall of Fame broadcaster for the aforementioned Cincinnati Reds. When I saw that, not only seeing him too, knowing, because I met him in Cincinnati, had beyond grateful to be invited up into the Fox Sports Ohio box when I was out there for the Big East tournament, but still maintaining my relationship with him, or whatever, still being able to be in contact with him. Well, that contact is now gone.
Well, that's the epitome, Joey. Tom Brenneman right now is the epitome of watching what you say when the cameras are rolling, and not even that, maintaining a professional Atmosphere. Right.
Zip it. Just zip it. And exactly what Patrick said. Wherever you go, in a small press box, whatever the case is, just shut up and do your job and done. And I don't mean to get wild on my show here, but when it comes to this, very, very passionate about this, number one. And number two, I can't stand the ignorance, the arrogance, the I'm bigger than this, I'll get away with it. You won't. That's what Brody needs to understand too. And on top of the whole thing with the pathetic franchise, etc., you have to know that now you have to answer, and your media people have to answer whatever. Moving forward, fellas, that's it. We're done here. Looking on the rest of my notes here, because I really want to talk about hockey soon, but I just want to get to a couple other things before.
I was going to say Joey's going to do a whole podcast on the Tom Brenneman incident.
Hey, listen. If I could, I for sure would, because it is an absolute disgrace. So moving forward, fellas, the Arizona Cardinals just signed strong safety Budda Baker to a 4-year, $59 million extension, the highest paid safety in the history of the National Football League. He ranks number 97 out of 100 in the top 100 players of 2020. Pretty good stuff. And the best part is that he does not have one single interception in his career. Well, that's a little odd, because why are you getting paid 4 years, $59 million, and you don't have a single pick? Well, he's considered a Swiss Army knife, fellas. Ian Schreier, your thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals and if this deal was good?
I think actually, Joey, I think he's a free safety, not a strong safety. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a free safety.
Back and forth depending on the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to jump ship here over a guy getting paid 4 years, $59 million for a guy who plays center field. I mean, I'd like to think that the Cardinals still have a pretty good guy in the secondary named Patrick Peterson, who does a pretty good job on his own, probably one of the best lockdown corners in all the NFL. But my case with Arizona coming into the season, they actually are my sleeper team in the NFC to actually potentially take a wild card spot. I mean, yes, you have to remember what division they play in. They play the Rams twice. They play the Seahawks twice. They play the defending Super Bowl runner-up, 49ers twice. So that's 6 games against playoff teams and teams that have made the playoffs, the last 2 years besides the Rams. Kyler Murray, excuse me. Kyler Murray has another year under his belt. I thought they had a real good draft without a second-round pick. Obviously, Isaiah Simmons fell to them at 8. Josh Jones, who I think is a tremendous offensive tackle coming out of the University of Houston as a third-round pick, is going to help shore up their offensive line. And I think don't forget about Kenyon Drake. I mean, remember, everybody jumped all over the DJ train. And I'm not talking about Daniel Jones. I'm talking about the David Johnson train. And how many years in a row was this guy the number 1 pick in fantasy leagues, and the guy completely fell flat on his face? Kenyon Drake comes in. DeAndre Hopkins is now in. So now you got him and Fitz. So that's certainly going to help your team. And they've got one of the best linebacking corps now in all of football. Yes, Simmons is unproven, but you have Chandler Jones, who's a Pro Bowler. You've got Jordan Hicks, Devon Kamara, and you've got Hassan Reddick coming off the bench, basically. He's basically a 5th linebacker for you. So I'm not, like I said, Joey, I'm not going to jump all over the fact that they signed the safety to a big contract, but this is a team that I think can really start making some waves if they can they went 5-10-1 last year, but I think if the team can start to find their swing, which it seemed like it was last year, they just weren't better than the 3 other teams ahead of them in the West. I think they could certainly make some ripples this season.
Yeah, that would be something, and I truly believe that they can. And because now, don't forget DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know. It's tough, and I could see also with the Los Angeles Rams heading downward. It's really not a. It's tough to say if Arizona can do it. But Baker, looking at some of these numbers, 301 tackles, 18 tackles for a loss, 4 fumble recoveries. He's considered the Swiss Army knife of the NFL. 647 snaps at safety, 174 snaps at outside linebacker, going opposite of Chandler Jones. 39 at inside linebacker when Jordan Hicks takes a rest. 31 as an edge rusher. 12 at left corner. And 10 at right cornerback. For something like that, how do you not pay this man? Because he can literally do everything. But the problem is that if he were to get hurt, God forbid, this team is in big, big trouble. Pat, your thoughts?
I just think, as you said, that many positions is good, but I don't know if locking up all that money in a safety position, even though he has the linebacker stats, is a good idea because there are money positions in football, and God forbid he does get hurt. You have all that money on him. What if you need a money position down the road, whether that be an offensive lineman, an edge rusher, or if anything were to happen to Kyler Murray, which no one hopes happens. But you have those positions that you need to pay big money, and you're getting in the secondary where secondary is very important, but if you're rushing the quarterback, if they don't throw the ball or run the ball that deep to you anyway, so just find it hard giving that much money to a safety. I hope him well, but it's not a money position, and maybe he could change that. But right now, it's a lot of money because what happens if something does happen to him down the road? The team is hand-tied in the salary cap right now, or then.
Yeah, and on top of it, too, with everything going on right now, who knows? The salary cap could even go down. It could be a flat cap like the NHL.
Well, we haven't seen it yet, Joey. And the thing is every year, and I think I've mentioned this on a show before, is that every free agency period, there's always a new player at a position that is the highest paid position in football because every year the cap goes up. And as a result, that is why Budda Baker is now the highest paid safety in the National Football League. There's nothing wrong with versatility. But like I said, you have a lockdown corner in your defense. I mean, I understand the numbers that he has and that he's the Swiss Army knife of the NFL. You have Patrick Peterson. You're doing okay for yourself. You're doing just fine. So to have another guy that's versatile and can play multiple positions and help out, you have a Pro Bowler in Chandler Jones on defense. I agree with Pat. But the problem is you guys keep making more and more money and keep asking for that money and are going to get guaranteed that money because if they're found to be vital to that team's defense, they're going to pay them that much because the salary cap goes up every single year.
Well, that's also that's the issue is that as the cap goes up, you have a lot of these players who think that they are the only ones that should be getting paid this and this amount of money, and their numbers just keep going up and up and up, and then all of a sudden, look around them. Look what happens when you're going to see Patrick Mahomes making $40 million. You're going to also have Travis Kelce making a lot of money as well. And you're not going to have enough money to retain a man like Frank Clark once his deal. Obviously, he just signed a brand new deal. But how about, who was it on there? I'm drawing a blank. Tyrann Mathieu is on Kansas City. Now, are you really going to, let Honey Badger go? We don't know. We don't know what the deal is because how much money is there to just throw out there?
Well, think about how much Jamal Adams, he's now on a rental now with Seattle for 1 year. How much money next offseason is Jamal Adams going to make?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, too, is that Budda Baker has now set this market for safeties. And don't forget also, how about Derwin James? Sure. As well, and he's another one too that is going to command a lot of money as well, and we're going to see this 4-year, $59 million extension. Jamal Adams, in my opinion, is going to wash this away. Same thing.
$20 million a year guy, 100%. Yeah.
I
and Kelce have now set the tight end market. Yeah. So it's crazy to think, but when guys like Zach Ertz, even though he'll be 32, 33 by the time his contract is up, there's a real good chance he's the highest paid player in football at 33 years old, making $17 million a year. It's crazy.
Yeah, and on top of it too, we spoke about cornerback. We spoke about the secondary. Robert Alford was signed from Atlanta. He unfortunately has a torn pectoral muscle and will be missing his second consecutive year. Last year, he was with Atlanta, and he broke his leg that essentially ended his 2019 year. Really, really tough stuff there for Arizona, because it could have been pretty good where you could have had that deep center fielder, and then I would say Patrick Peterson, obviously, the left side would have been completely shut down. And Robert Alford is really no one to really put aside. He's pretty good. And there were times when Desmond Trufant couldn't get it done in Atlanta, but Robert Alford could, and they let him go in Atlanta. Moving over to Chicago, to the Windy City, David Montgomery, he was carted off, and he limped off. Then he was carted off to the locker room, and they avoided a serious injury. We won't really be talking about that much because at one point we thought it was going to be a monumental injury where it would be Tariq Cohen and then potentially signing a player such as maybe Devonta Freeman in that range. But thankfully that is done. But here, I know Ian Schreier is a Giants fan, and I'm a diehard Eagles fan, so I have to bring this up here. Andre Dillard, he tore his biceps a couple of days ago, or actually yesterday. You see, we're completely all over the place with these days.
We forgot what day it is already.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all over the place. But Andre Dillard, he tore his biceps during yesterday's practice. And he was supposed to be the starting left tackle. Jason Peters was re-signed to replace right guard Brandon Brooks, who tore his ACL or did something. He's always injured, but he's one of the best guards when healthy, or one of the best offensive linemen when healthy. Costs a ton of money, but again, always injured. This, in my opinion, I almost see this as like a win. I hate to say it. Andre Dillard, he's a good player, but I mean, hey, you just slide over Jason Peters, and really, you haven't lost anything. What do you guys think? Ian, what do you think? You as a Giants fan.
I think they're awfully thin right now. Jason Peters is getting a lot older. They lost Brandon Brooks, like you said. Now you got Dillard out. They are very, very, very thin on the interior besides Jason Kelce. I don't know if maybe their fourth-round pick out of Auburn, Jack Driscoll, is the answer, at least to spot in at right guard while they move Peters back to left tackle. I've looked at their depth chart. Like I said, it's very, very thin at the guard position. They could look to go outside and try to find some help. I mean, you got some journeymen out there, Donald Penn, Marshall Newhouse, Cordy Glenn, a lot of guys. I remember Newhouse when he played for the Giants. He played right tackle. These are guys that aren't going to be awfully dependable, but if you sign them and you might get lucky if you want to shift them inside. Like a guy like Donald Penn, who's been a career player at tackle, is probably not going to want to move inside and play guard, depending how desperate of a contract he really wants. The guy they could try to summon out of retirement is Joe Staley, but he's retired, and I don't know if they offered to him that he would come out. So I think right now the question for the Eagles is probably to address from what they already have, which again, I'm not trying to, jump on a dead horse here, even as a Giants fan, is probably to address from where they are now, and maybe they take their fourth-round pick in Driscoll and spot him in there, but they are awfully thin after Kelce on the interior part of the line.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
You're allowed to say whatever you like, Patrick.
So talking about all these injuries and all with the NFL, and either it be a running back hurt, an offensive lineman hurt, doesn't this show that you at least need one or two preseason games to see where a player fits in or learn the system? Yeah. Because these NFL systems are very complex, and whether you be a running back or an offensive lineman that we touched on, or a safety, you have to learn schemes, you have to learn blocking patterns, you have to learn what these people are doing. It can be very hard for a new offensive lineman to come in on week 1 or week 2, get a starting job, and know what the offense is actually doing. So I think the first couple of weeks, because of these with no preseason and all these injuries, we're going to see some very sloppy football. I know that's a little bit off the point, but talk about all these injuries, I figured I would bring it up.
It's not really off the point because something that it's not really a segue, but going back to what we were talking about earlier with the Yankees losing all of these guys, Aaron Boone came out publicly and said that a lot of these injuries he blames on the accelerated summer schedule. He blamed it with that. He also blamed it with with summer camp, with or spring training 2.0. So I have to agree with you, Patrick, and I really do believe that once they get, you can only do so much in a simulated game. You can only do so much in a scrimmage. You can only do because you're only playing against your guys, and not only that, it's not that the other team is trying to hurt you or anything like that, but they're not going full force at you because, God forbid, if they were to hurt one of their own, oh boy, any coach or owner, etc., or general manager is going to be furious. Why did you make this move? What'd you do here? So yeah, I have to agree with you there. At least one preseason game.
One more point, not talk about, but playing against each other. I was watching Hard Knocks, and Anthony Lynn was talking to his defense. And he's like, you see a guy going down, you let him go. At one point in week 1 or 2, you see a guy going down, and you ease up for a second, and the guy gets his footing back, and he blows by you for 15 or 20 more yards. It's a fine line in football, and I think they need to get ready. And playing against each other is just not going to do because you don't want to injure people because it's such a physical game, but you have to get used to hitting people on different teams to get used to that playing to the whistle.
Yeah. And also, I personally believe that the injuries week 1 and week 2 are going to be astronomical all around the league. And I think that even though we've seen so many players, including basically the whole New England Patriots team, opt out, things are going to be so thin. And it's going to be I think it's going to be worse than the NBA. I think it's going to be worse than Major League Baseball because we've seen a lot of these I don't want to call them stars on the Patriots, but a lot of starters that are not. Donta Hightower, gone. Patrick Chung, gone. Marquise Lee, gone. Marcus Cannon, I believe, gone. So there's so many players. One little injury can make a team go from 100 to 0 in about 2 seconds. Anybody can chime in whenever I stop. Anybody can chime in, please.
No, you know what? I'll be interested to see what the injury story is going to be. I mean, I think there are plenty of teams that need to try to get those hits in, Joey. And I mean, I can only speak from the Giants' perspective. I haven't, had a chance to catch up on a lot of training camp so far because a lot of it has been closed off to the media. They can only do so much. They can only post so much now in the wake of COVID-19. I mean, you got to get your hits in. I mean, there's been talk in Giants camp of them taking the red jersey of Joe Judge taking the red jersey off Daniel Jones just so when week 1 rolls around, he's taking a few hits. Right. Does that scare me as a Giants fan? You bet it does. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong or unhealthy about it either. I mean, you really want to wait till September 10th or whatever day it is for when the Giants are playing the Steelers on Monday Night Football at MetLife in week 1, and that's when he's going to take his first licks. I mean, you have to imagine that's happening in a lot of training camps right now where these guys, like I said, they need to get their hits in. They need to go up against guys. But to Pat's point and to your earlier point, how much can you scrimmage each other? I'm going to disagree with your point, Joey, with respect to the fact that Aaron Boone is blaming summer camp and the truncated schedule as to why this team is getting banged up. This team was banged up last year, and they played a full 162-game season. So I don't know if that's just him trying to come up with an excuse as to why the team has been struggling of late. There's no doubt that when injuries pile up like that, the team is going to struggle. But this happened to them last year. This was a one-year fluke. I might say, okay, fine, and then we'll see what happens next year. But right now, I don't know if I agree with that point. But the point I do agree with is regards to how much can you scrimmage each other. You really need to get out there and start hitting some guys. Obviously, it's helping with Hard Knocks with respect to the Rams and the Chargers, but it's not, for other teams around the league, you're not getting that benefit.
No, you're not at all. And on top of it, too, as Pat said, with no preseason games, and that red jersey could potentially come off on September 13th, the amount of injuries that we are going to see, whether people like it or not, it's going to be astronomical from everybody. If that is that certain teams do not take off, especially with the quarterbacks. We are going to see a major quarterback go down if teams do not allow their quarterbacks to take hits early on with no preseason games. You have to have some sort of scrimmage, and it has to be full on. You have to have some sort of game action or something close to it because these guys will be startled and they will be hurt before week 5, you're going to see guys off the street. Guys who we haven't heard in 5-6 years will have to make their way back in. It's sad. It's terrible. But right now, we're going to see football. That's the way it looks. Right now, there were tons of positive tests a few months prior. Just a couple of days ago, only 2 people, or players rather, were tested positive. It's a big turn of events for the good. We could potentially be seeing football for the whole season. I don't know if that's going to happen, especially because we don't know what the deal is in the winter. But right now it's looking okay, and we're going to see some hopeful football. It's going to be good, but there's just, with so many injuries piling up around the league, it's just going to get even more. Now, I want to ask you this. There is a linebacker named Lavonte David down in Tampa Bay, fellas. And this is his last year under his current contract, and they're working on an extension for him. Now, Shaq Barrett right now is making $15 million. And obviously, I'm assuming he's not going to come back. That is just what it is, because Lavonte David's going to make, you figure, in that range, $15 million or whatnot. With Khalil Mack leading the way in terms of linebackers, $23.5 million. It's beyond crazy to see some of these numbers for these linebackers and how much these teams have made their linebackers, how much they've paid their linebackers. Bobby Wagner, $18 million. D Ford, $17.1 million. CJ Mosley, $17 million exactly. Matthew Judon, $16.8. Chandler Jones, $16.5, who in my opinion deserves a pay raise. Zardarius Smith, $16.5. Melvin Ingram, who's also in his last year of his contract, $16 million, who most likely will be getting a few more million added to his bank. Lavonte David, fellas, in my opinion, is probably one of the, if not the most underrated linebacker in all of football. How much do you guys think he's worth?
I would say, with respect to Lavonte David, he's going to go as the market's going to go too. I mean, if you think that Shaq Barrett's going to be the guy on the way out, and Lavonte David is going to be the guy that's going to be the center staple of those linebacking corps, I mean, you look at right now at their salary cap situation. They've only got $2 million left in terms of their cap. I'm not so sure in terms of who the pending free agents are for this team right now. And with regards to Tampa Bay, I mean, they just signed Brady. They just brought in Gronk. So those are a couple of decent players when they were in their prime.
Just a couple, right?
Yeah, just a couple. But I mean, they've got this pretty good wide receiver there that they're eventually going to need to pay, named Chris Godwin, who's pretty good. So I'm interested to see where it's going to go. I mean, as the market develops and when you see who the highest paid linebackers vis-a-vis Khalil Mack are making in the league, that's the money they're going to ask for. They're going to hold out. I mean, we've seen it year in and year out. We've seen it with Le'Veon Bell. We've seen it with Melvin Gordon. You're going to see it at every position. It's like, if I'm not getting paid as much as the highest paid linebackers getting paid in football, what am I to you? I'm going to go test the market, and I'm going to hold out. So I don't see how Lavonte David eventually won't make top of the market money, but they've got to be wise with how they're allocating this money. Otherwise, Godwin's going to start taking a walk too.
Pat?
I think it depends on what we spoke about earlier with this whole situation this year and where the cap goes. You're not really sure what the cap's going to look like next year. So you could pay him top dollar, but if you lose the cap, you could lose another important player like Ian just said. So I think you have to play this out, see where the cap sits next year with everything going on, a season without fans, and just play it by ear. I mean, everyone wants to get paid, but they get around of money eventually. And I think we mentioned that as well, too.
That's the whole thing, is that with everything going on in the world, we are seeing television contracts becoming more and more valuable. And with no fans, at least to start the season, we heard right now in Pennsylvania, the Steelers and the Eagles will not be allowing fans into the building for the foreseeable future, or at least to start the season. The Jets and the Giants, most likely, I believe. I don't know what Phil Murphy said.
That's been announced already, Joey. They're not, unless the situation with respect to the virus changes, there will be no fans allowed at MetLife Stadium for the duration of the season.
So for the whole season, right? So exactly. So each state is taking a stand in different ways, and the only place that we might see fans would be in Jacksonville, but they only get about 10 anyway. So we'll probably see about.
I heard Kansas City was doing 22%. I'm not sure if that's.
I haven't heard of that, but I know Pat responded to one of my tweets on Twitter the other day. But how in the world, when Florida's been one of the epicenters of the spread of this virus, how in the world is Jacksonville and Miami allowing fans into their stadiums? And Joey, you're not wrong. I mean, Jacksonville can't sell out the stadium, and neither can the Dolphins. But how? I don't get it. It doesn't add up to me. I mean, there's Jerry Jones saying we're going to allow fans into our 100,000 capacity seats AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Why do you want to risk it?
Well, I don't know, man. But listen, like I said, this is not
the Dolphins aren't going to be any good. So what's the point of going in and risking it to watch terrible football?
Right, exactly.
If the Giants were to do it this year, I'll make fun of my own team. If the Giants let fans in, it's not worth risking my health to watch a team that's going to win 2 games this year.
Right. Well, again, fellas, we're not going to go into the political part of it, but as we did say, a majority of the teams already, and also their state governments have already said that their teams will not be allowed to open the floodgates or open the gates to fans to start the 2020 season. They have left the door open for the latter part of the 2020 season. I believe that is, in my opinion, very optimistic and a fantasy, in my opinion. No pun intended with fantasy football coming up, but no, it is, in my opinion, we're living in a fantasy world there. So Levante David, going back to that, though, we don't know exactly what the deal is, and I personally believe, too, with television being the main way where everyone can catch sports, the demand for TV, for NFL Sunday Ticket, for whatever it is, we're going to see money go up, and most likely we're going to see at some point the cap either – I'm assuming, though, again, because you're losing so much money with ticket sales. Also, you're losing so much money with concessions, certain sponsors as well, to have certain concessions open inside your stadium. They're losing millions and millions of dollars with that, too. So I'd have to say that this, again, I'm not looking into an 8-ball here, guys, but it's so tough to say with Levante David being, and he's also 30. Don't forget, he's 30 years old. It is so tough to say, well, you're going to pay him more than $10 million at 30? Do you trust that, Ian, at 30 years old, where his body could potentially start wearing down?
And yeah, you're on the downside, but it really depends. I mean, like Pat said, it depends what the cap's going to look like come the end of this season, but also it depends what the market's like. I mean, even if he takes the average of every middle linebacker in football and it still comes out to be more than $10 million a year, I mean, look at Jadeveon Clowney right now. Guy hasn't even signed on with a team. He's clearly on the downside of his career, but he's still waiting to get paid.
It never really went up.
Right.
Melvin Ingram just got $14.75 million for it. He's 31. It was only 1 year, but still a lot of money.
Right. It's a wait and see type of game. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the world of NFL, because once we see in about a couple of weeks when football starts, which is disgusting to say, a couple of weeks where summer's almost over, we'll see what the deal is with injuries and etc. Fellas, the time that we have been waiting for, the most important topic that we have been waiting for, and I know this is
you're outnumbered right now in terms of Ranger fans to Islander fans. Right?
Oh, I'm well aware, and I'm well aware. Let me tell you one thing, and I know Patrick just went, because he doesn't want to talk about it. But let me tell you this. Regardless, I know Patrick loves hockey, though. So that's it.
No one's debating that, but I'm just saying. I've been outnumbered for that too, so
I'm very excited.
On my side.
It is. So, as we know, fellas, the National Hockey League postponed the last couple of days. in solidarity with everything going on in the world. We all know what the deal is there. So games will resume tomorrow, 12 o'clock, 12, 7, and I believe 8 or 9 or in that range or something like that. Islanders and Flyers game 3 tomorrow at 7. I believe Tampa Bay and Boston game 3 or game 4. I believe it's game 3. Game 4, right. Will be tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And then also Vegas and
Vancouver.
Vegas and Vancouver will be the nightcap in Edmonton. So because this whole layoff has happened, I want to know, fellas, from the two of you who, and obviously Patrick, who loves hockey, I want to know from you, Pat, first, who does this layoff hurt the most? Which team that is?
Man, I was trying to say who it helped the most, and I was giving my opinion there, but I'll save that for later. I think the layoff helps the most the Boston Bruins. No, I answered the question wrong again. I think it may. Okay, let me answer it backwards now. I'm sorry. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they're rolling. They were hot. They scored 7 goals last game. You have a goaltender on the other side who is rattled. They gave up a bunch of goals, but Yaroslav Halak is a pro. He has a couple more days to regroup. You have a veteran Boston team that has time to regroup, and they're not going to be as flustered. I do not believe momentum means anything in the NHL playoffs, but when you lose 2 straight games, 1 in overtime and 1 7-1, it could get to you. And when you have a group like Boston that have time to reconvene, maybe have some meetings, that have the leadership, and when you lose Tuukka Rask like they did, you have time for Halak to get his thoughts together, maybe not play him as much as you wanted. He gets a little bit of a break, and you have that team to get ready. You have to win 3 out of the next, now I have to do math, three games. You have to win 3 games. I'm not going to do the math, and we're right there. I was also going to say it also hurts the Flyers because on a back-to-back, you have Semyon Varlamov, who got pulled after the first period, where maybe you go to start Thomas Greiss, but now with 1-1, I go right back to Varlamov and give the advantage to the Islanders over the Flyers. Instead of it being a back-to-back with it being 1-1, you have a chance to have a back-to-back being up 2-1 and playing Greiss there.
Ian, your thoughts? I'll save mine for last.
I was going to ask Pat when I heard his response. I was going to ask. I don't even think I sent you my notes with who I thought was my the team I thought was going to hurt the most. Yeah, I agree with Pat 100%. I've got to say the Tampa Bay Lightning. He said 1 in overtime and 1 7-1. Tampa Bay has outscored Boston 11-4 in the last 2 games. Think about that, 11-4. This team still has a lot of offensive firepower. I know they're struggling defensively. I know Halak's history with the Islanders wasn't so great, but listen, this guy was a pro, has been around the league. He's got the couple of days off. I think this takes a little bit out of Tampa Bay sales, and I think it starts to favor the Bruins a little more because now they're getting these couple of days off. I agree with Pat 100%. Team that hurts the most, Tampa. Team that benefits the most, Boston, 100%.
I am going to flip-flop here, and I'm going to go with the Western Conference, who it hurts the most. And right now, guys, don't forget, Dallas was a write-off for me, okay? Dallas was an absolute write-off, but they won their first 2 games, 5-3 and 5-2 respectively, okay? So they outscored Colorado 10-5 against Colorado. Now, then the next game, in game 3, which was just a couple of days ago on Wednesday, they won Colorado, that is 6-4. Now, you figure, okay, they're going to head into the next game. They're ready to roll. They are ready to roll. And yes, their next game, I don't believe it was a back-to-back originally with Colorado. So they would have had the 2 days off anyway. I believe tonight would have been the night that that Colorado and Dallas would have played. I think that's what it was. Yes, because it was Tampa and then that game because the Islanders were yesterday in Vancouver. Right, okay. We're just making sure that. So now Colorado has to come back, and they play at 6 o'clock. They play 6 o'clock on Sunday night. So now they have an additional 2 days off. With the injuries that are going on here in Denver, or with Colorado, sorry, I forgot we're in the bubble. And Phil Grubauer not being there. Eric Johnson also getting hurt. Nazem Kadri, how much longer can he do this? He's been phenomenal. Looking at some of the numbers here, fellas, with the points, Nathan McKinnon with 20 leads the league. Mikko Rantanen 15. Miro Heiskanen with 15 as well. This, to me, has Dallas winning this series written all over it. And I do believe that this one issue with their layoff and Colorado winning and dropping the first two is humongous in what they were trying to do to come back from that. Dallas now has a few days extra to rest. They have a pretty, I don't want to say old lineup, but they have some older guys and they have some very young guys. Anyone want to disagree with that fact or that thought?
No, I'm going to agree with it. And for the simple reason is, how much more can Nathan McKinnon do is my question. I'm not trying to put any hurting on Gabe Landeskog, but I haven't heard his name called a whole lot in the playoffs. Kadri's been exceptional. He looks like a completely different player from what he was in Toronto. But listen, that team goes as Nate McKinnon goes. And in Dallas's favor, that top line finally found their footing. Radulov and Seguin, and they're getting hot at the right time. Khudobin's not the greatest goaltender, but he's doing just enough for them as well. And sometimes you can.
That's all he needs to do, Ian, is just a little bit.
Yep.
Don't forget, too, I just want to add into this, too. Captain America 2.0, Joe Pavelski, is finally finding his footing in Dallas, and it's taken him all year long to do it. Go ahead, continue.
No, that's really kind of the end of my point, but 25 goals have been scored, over in the 3 games in that series so far. I have to think at some point McKinnon's going to have a game where he regresses. And Dallas is just going to take advantage of that. Right now, the Grubauer injury completely put them in the back seat. It put even more pressure on that Avalanche team, who's been scoring enough, to say the least, to score even more. And Dallas is just taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, it's really sad, because you look at this back end for Colorado, and Eric Johnson, he is older. Ian Cole, who obviously they brought in there for the Stanley Cup experience from Pittsburgh. You have young guys, Nikita Zadorov, Cale Makar too. He really has not played great. Samuel Girard, he's been exceptional. But those two injuries that we did bring up before in Eric Johnson and Philip Grubauer have been detrimental to this team. And in just one game, you still see it. And really this whole series, we've seen it. Again, they've won they won game 3, 6-4. They still allowed more than 3 goals. Mm-hmm. And then in the first 2 games, they allowed 10 combined goals, 5 and 5. If they don't get Grubauer back, if they don't get solid defense, if they can't figure out what's going on defensively, Colorado, who in my opinion was a lock for the Western Conference to head to the Cup final, they're going to be done sooner than most people think. Pat, your thoughts?
Just to go on Dallas, I guess I only see this guy twice a year, and it's one of your old friends, Joe. But I feel like every time I watch a game, Blake Cuomo scores a goal. Every time I watch a game, the guy scores a goal. It's unbelievable. And going off that point, I think Dallas has the veteran leadership and everything to get to the next round. Whether what happens in the next round with Vegas and Vancouver, I do not know yet. But, I think Colorado holds on for a little more, but the firepower, if you look at the amount of goals Dallas scored at the tail end of the Calgary series and the beginning of this series, they're just scoring at an unbelievable rate. And I don't see it slowing down because multiple guys are doing it. When you mention Colorado, it's very front heavy with what you said with the 20 points to 15 points to 15 points.
Yeah, it's it's very weird to see right now what Dallas is doing, because we have not seen that. And ever since Tyler Seguin also signed his massive contract as well, that's worth, I think, like $9.5 million a year. It's only been him and Jamie Benn, and they could not get that right wing spot together. They tried. They tried with Blake Como. They tried with Alexander Radulov on one. Then they tried it again, and it worked. It's finally worked. And it's taken how many years since Radulov came from Montreal to Dallas, where it can finally work. Looking at some of these names here, fellas, the leadership that you bring up, Pat, Corey Perry from Anaheim, as you said, Blake Como, but also someone whose name we have not really heard of in a long time. And I'm just trying to think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you guys remember the name? Andrew Cogliano.
Sure.
The Blackhawks, correct?
The Iron Man from just a few years ago when he was with I think we just got our power back. Okay, so it just popped back up. So I think, and you guys we're live now. Okay, good. I think we had a little bit of a delay before. Andrew Cogliano, though, he was one of the, in my opinion, best defensive forwards in the entire league. And it's such a shame to see how his numbers have just come tumbling down. His time on ice has diminished rapidly. He's now averaging about 10 minutes on the ice now, when this man would be on the ice for about, 16, 17 minutes. He would be always on the PK, always on the penalty kill. And it's just a shame. But again, as you guys said, it's the leadership that this team has from all around, from Anaheim, from San Jose, from the Islanders, LOL, from, and then also from young guys like Denis Gurianov, who also is he's tied with his line mate Joe Pavelski with 7 goals.
We just go back to December of 2018. So that's last season, where an executive for the Dallas Stars called Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn terrible, and for a lack of paraphrasing, a waste of money. Well, I think they're coming to fruition now, and I think they're going to be a force coming through.
Which is actually very talk about crazy. I'll say it out. I'll say it after we go off while we're not on a hot break right now. But Miro Heiskanen. Say it again. Oh, okay. All right. No. Yeah, it sounded something on my end. Miro Heiskanen also, don't forget, 15 points. 15 points. Yeah, and he's been phenomenal. Him and John Klingberg have been really carrying this defense as well. Anybody want to add to that?
No,
no, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, you're making the point yourself there, Joey. It's, we don't want to beat a dead horse here. I mean, I want to see. Listen, you've said it already that the injuries that Colorado has sustained have been detrimental to the team. It's showing on the ice with how many goals they're giving up. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dallas, because obviously they're showing they could be even a cup contender, especially if they're going to be the team that beats Colorado and advances to the West Final to play the winner of Vegas and Vancouver. I'd like to see them go up against be the team to go up against the Vegas Vancouver winner. I know a lot of people are probably rooting for Colorado and love to see that, that Landeskog and McKinnon combination, among others, to make it all the way and, be on national television every other night. But right now, I mean, I'd like to see Dallas go up against a team that has a pretty solid defense. And right now, Colorado doesn't have that. And kudos to Dallas for taking advantage of it.
Now, let's stick to hockey for a few more minutes, fellas, because obviously with still like a half hour, and hockey is, I know for sure, me and Pat's number one here, aside from the Yankees. And if I'm not mistaken, you know what? It is 7:30. Let's get a Yankees/Mets update. Who has that with us?
They're delayed right now.
They're delayed. Can you cue the sad music? The Yankees did lose game 1, 6-4. Dylan Betances ran into a little bit of trouble in his first outing back at Yankee Stadium. They had runners on first and second with 2 outs, and Gary Sanchez popped up. I forgot where he popped up to, but he popped up.
The sad Yes Network music. Yes, I know.
Cue it.
Right. Yes, right, exactly.
So the Mets, a nice comeback, come from behind, spirited win. Yankees lost 6 in a row, but they're still a game and a half in the playoff spot, so they just have to get in.
I'll let John Mingo know that you're going to come for his job as well. I'll have to shoot him a text for sure. And
I'll take whatever job I can right now.
You got a little too much faith in your alma mater's basketball team, my man. Let me tell you, a little too much faith.
Oh man, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But but looking back to hockey here, Vegas and Vancouver, fellas. I want to say this: there has been some talk that what we have seen is similar to Pittsburgh and the way they started back in 2008, 2009. Now, I think that this is a little far-fetched here to consider Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and Brock Besser to be the Crosby, Malkin, Letang of 2020 or for Vancouver. Again, I think that's completely far-fetched, in my opinion. But I've seen it written a lot of places, though, because the way that these guys they are phenomenal. Elias Pettersson, 16 points right now. He's second in the league right now, or second amongst the playoff teams or amongst the players or whatnot in points. Bo Horvat leads the league with 8 goals right now. Vancouver looks pretty good, but then they also got spanked in game number 1 against Vegas. But then they came back and gave it to Vegas 5-2. What do you guys think about that series? We didn't really talk about that.
Can I talk about a guy which is going to pay me to say his name to watch him do well because he's not doing it for my team? But JT Miller has had a great year. He had 72 points in 69 games. He has 11 points in the playoffs, and I think it was him, but they were talking about coming back in game 2, and he's just said, we're just going to come back and play our game, and they answered the call. So I guess you know about JT Miller. He was part of those Ranger teams that made the run, and he always had that upside until the Rangers traded him. But Miller, with those 3 guys, add to a very nice Vancouver team. I'm not quite sure if they can make it past the Golden Knights this round, but the future is definitely bright in Vancouver, which makes it very exciting with a good Canucks team in 2 seasons when a new Seattle Kraken team comes into the league. Me getting very ahead of myself, but with the way the fantasy draft, what do we call it? The expansion draft goes, you're going to have a pretty good team in Seattle when they first start out. So the Pacific Division is going to be very exciting coming up.
The thing with the Canucks, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier with respect to Dallas, is the veteran leadership and the veteran presence in that locker room. I mean, first off, I want to give Jacob Markstrom a ton of credit in goal. I don't think he's getting enough credit for the way he's playing, with the exception of really one bad game. I mean, he's made in clutch time, he's made some exceptional saves to keep the Canucks in games. This team also has leadership with guys that have won cups. Tanner Pearson, Tyler Toffoli. You can't replace those kind of players. Those are the kind of players I want to see the Rangers get in the future and build their 3rd and 4th lines around. Like, I want to see those guys. Those are the guys you need to win cups. These are the guys in the locker rooms that know what it takes to hoist the cup at the end of the season. Alex Edler's been there a while. He knows exactly what it takes to win games. So kudos to the Canucks. I mean, I know we're only a couple of games into that series. They really trump, I don't mean it with the pun, but they really trump Vegas in terms of the veteran leadership they have in that room.
Another veteran guy they have, and I'm going to bring him up just because I saw him every day for about 5 or 6, 7 straight years, and that's Jay Beagle, another guy who brings that leadership, formerly of the Washington Capitals, who the Rangers seem to always see in the playoffs and multiple times. Another guy who doesn't score, but he's a center who goes PK and does a lot of little things, or at least he did with Washington, and I'm pretty sure he just helps those younger guys, show them what it takes to win.
Fellas, when we have whenever it happens, I can actually say we are going to announce today on here with all of our viewers, we are going to have the Primetime Rundown Free Agent Frenzy special and show. And I hope the two of you can join me on that show. It's going to be tons of fun because this would be year number 2 of that happening whenever it does happen, sometime October or November or whatnot, if we are not back at work or whatever the case may be.
We still have evenings.
Sorry?
We still have evenings.
That is true.
Right.
That is very true. But Ian also has a family too and also has a daughter. So.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. But thankfully, I have a daughter that goes to bed early enough so I can come on and talk to you guys. I mean, this is fantastic.
Well, no, absolutely. But going back to that, no, Jay Beagle too. And on top of it too, let's not forget, Pat. He also came over. I believe it was right after the Stanley Cup. Or was it just before? I think it was.
He came over last season, so he won the cup. This was his second year in Vancouver.
Right, yeah, exactly. And on top of it, too, listen, we don't want to, I hate to say it, because Brandon Sutter has been all over the league, okay? But he also played, you can't forget, he also played with Sidney Crosby. He also played with Chris Letang. He played with all of those guys. So regardless of him not being able to win a cup or go far in the playoffs while with Pittsburgh, he still has learned from those guys. So he's able to bring that to guys like Brock Besser, Bo Horvat, and JT Miller, too. Don't forget, he was a part of the Rangers, too, before he was traded to Rangers South. Excuse me. Also, don't forget Louis Eriksson, too. I hate to say that name because he is an absolute waste of money. He is. But right now, though, he has been – but you know what, though? Listen, right now, he's been coming in clutch, especially with some of the injuries that have been hurting the Vancouver Canucks. But Jim Bennings has a lot of work to do because don't forget that glaring $3 million recapture penalty for the retirement of Roberto Luongo really, really stings. Fellas, moving forward, Vegas Golden Knights. I want to hear your thoughts about them. Mark Stone is an absolute freak. We knew that when he was in Ottawa, and we knew that when he was going to be on a line with Max Pacioretty and Paul Stastny. This line could potentially be one of the craziest first lines in all of hockey. Your thoughts?
The line that's really interesting when you include Mark Stone's name is the line that's been really producing all the offense. That Mark's, guys like Mark Stone. Obviously, you said Mark Stone with Pacioretty, but guys like Jonathan Marchessault and Tuffin Reeves and these kind of players who have really provided the bulk of the scoring for Vegas. I can't believe Paul Stastny is still playing. I feel like it feels like he retired like 3 or 4 years ago. I can't believe he's still out there playing. Much to the chagrin of the Islanders, I don't think the Islanders fans really have much of a chagrin, but Robin Lehner's really played great. And to think that there's a Stanley Cup champion playing behind him is another thing entirely.
Yeah, and on top of it, too, don't forget, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was last year, that Marchessault, William Karlsson, and Riley Smith line, guys, was their first line. And their second line on the depth chart was Pacioretty, Stone, and Paul Stastny. That is gross, in my opinion. That is phenomenal. And then also they've also reassured their back end too. Nate Schmidt, Shea Theodore, Braden.
Don't say it.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Right. Oh, don't say
I was going to bring him up, but don't say it. That was a good trade for them.
He's talking about Alec Martinez, isn't he?
That is correct. He is talking about Alec Martinez. There is one person that he's talking about, and that is Alec Martinez. But also, don't forget too, someone that also played for the New York Rangers as well, Nick Holden as well.
Yeah, sure.
And and it's really a shame too. Who really is? I think his time in Vegas is done. But Derek Englund as well. Sayonara to him. He was a big part of following the shootings when the team made their first when they played their inaugural game at T-Mobile Arena. He was a big part of that. But the way everything has been going right now in in Vegas for their defensive core has been remarkable. They have really, really shored it up. At one point, guys, remember in the beginning when they went to the Stanley Cup, it was a little their second and third pairing behind Theodore and Nate Schmidt was a little rickety. But now you have, again, we don't want to say the name Alec Martinez, but Nick Holden as well. Them too, and as we said, Braden McNabb has really come through. And on top of it too, someone that really has come a long way is Zach Whitecloud as well.
I think Vegas, the credit to Vegas, besides who's in goal right now, is the guys that are really coming through on the score sheet, obviously besides their veteran players, like you said, like Marchessault, are guys that you really didn't expect coming into the season to be their real dependence point getters. I mean, I didn't really think at the start of this season we'd be talking about Vegas as a cup contender, if not a cup winner. Am I wrong in feeling that way?
You guys got cut off. On my end there.
I froze for a second.
You guys got cut off there for a second.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I didn't think they were going to get the Pacific, but you look at all the teams stacked up there, but they've done a good job. And since they came in, I joke about Alec Martinez, but George McPhee from the expansion draft, getting all those players and building a team, he obviously had a vision. And then making the trade for Martinez at the trading deadline to reassure them of defenseman who has scored a big goal in the Stanley Cup final, plus has the Stanley Cup experience to get over that hump. I think McPhee has done a really good job to get these guys ready, because if you look at all the teams in the Pacific, they might have not been the team you circled in October, but they're showing again and again in their short 3-year history, they could get the job done.
Yeah, and on top of it too, guys, let's not forget too, as you guys said earlier, this here. This was a big thing just a few days ago. From the agent of Marc-Andre Fleury, Alan Walsh, who has a history of this. And basically, what it came down to was that he didn't really agree with Peter DeBoer's decision of putting Robin Lehner in front of Marc-Andre Fleury. But I do believe, though, that will not be for long, and Robin Lehner will be getting a starting job somewhere. Marc-Andre Fleury will be getting that net back. Agree or disagree? Start with Ian first.
I agree. I think that Lehner. I mean, it was a 1-year deal. I mean, he's gonna test the market. I mean, who can blame him? I mean, I know a lot of people when he kind of bailed on the Islanders and ended up in Chicago and didn't put up the numbers in Chicago that people expected, and then has returned his career around again in Vegas. There's no reason for him not to test the market. And Fleury obviously has a couple of cups to his credit, and I don't think DeBoer would have any reason not to. I mean, unless Vegas decides to resign him and to decide to do other things with Fleury.
The thing that bothered me about this is I've been around Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, not that much, just when he went to the Garden when I was interning with covering the Rangers. But every story you hear about Marc-Andre Fleury is that he's a class guy. He's a class guy, and I still believe he's a class guy. And for his agent to do this, I think that hurts him. But also, this bubble playoff hockey is different than anything else. With the amount of back-to-backs, you're going to have to need to – you saw it in Game 3 in the Ranger-Carolina series. Granted, that was just to get in. But they went from Mrazek to McElhinney, and they came in. You need 2 goalies to win. So the fact that the agent did that to hurt Fleury, where he's obviously going to get reps, whether it be in relief of Lehner if he doesn't have it right away on a back-to-back, or to start a second game of a back-to-back, he's a clear goalie who could win. I just thought it's a premature motion where hockey's a team game and you need to accept your role. I thought Fleury was doing that. And it doesn't seem like it hurt the Golden Knights, but it was a bad move on a team that is still moving in the right direction. And I think can make it out of the West and has potential to win the Cup.
There's no doubt in my mind that it was a bad move. And on top of it, too, we've seen Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner. They've also had chats about it, basically saying that there's no love lost there. And on top of it, too, Marc-Andre Fleury basically he also told his agent Alan Walsh to stop it. Basically, say take the picture down. This picture, again, for those that are just joining us, was up there, and it was basically he was getting stabbed in the back by his new head coach, Pete DeBoer. Do not forget as well, George McPhee, technically now the president of hockey operations. Kelly McCrimmon is the new general manager, but I'm going to venture to say, as Pat was saying earlier, George McPhee most likely still making most of those decisions and basically probably doing a lot of the negotiating as well. We'd figure. Just looking again at Marc-Andre Fleury, he's getting paid $7 million. He still has in total, including this year, guys, $21 million. 7 times 3 is 21. And he's 35 years old. You can't do anything with that. And on top of it, he's got a modified no trade clause. Who's going to take that? Especially after this year where things are going, it's going to be a flat cap. And with this team here, where they only have, heading into next year, they have $309,000 in cap space. That's it.
I mean, honestly, I don't even want to ask, but Joey, what's his buyout number right now?
I do not know, but I can't even.
Around 5 or 4. I'm not sure.
So with that being said, that's probably I'm going to venture to say that's not going to happen.
No, I mean, unless they pulled like a Mets did with a Bobby Bonilla in hockey and somehow find a way to defer his buyout, which Marc-Andre Fleury wouldn't allow anyway.
Right, exactly.
There's still a cap hit. There's a 2-year cap hit after that anyway.
Right.
So, and on top of it, too, do not forget, they also signed Alex Tuck to that $4.75 million contract from now until doomsday. So really, they are cap stricken. They can't really do much. So unfortunately, in my opinion, they're going to have to say goodbye to Robin Lehner. But on our show, we are going to see what the deal is, where Robin Lehner would go. That's basically where it comes down to. It's going to be tons of fun whenever that does commence. So please stay with us, theeasternobserver.com, and stay up to date with us there. We will have all of the upcoming shows on there, and we will be having all the breaking news on there as well for our shows. Moving forward here, fellas, as we head into the final 13 minutes of our show, let's look now at the NBA here, because there was some talk by Paul George, the Los Angeles Clippers small forward Paul George, where he was depressed. He had a lot of anxiety. There was not a lot of positives coming from the bubble. He felt like he wanted to leave. Now, I want to ask you this, because the two of you are in college sports with me as well. And regardless of what divisions we work in, we are all human beings. And we all have there's a mental side of it. And Paul George basically said that games 2, 3, and 4, he checked out. He felt like he was, quote unquote, locked in there. You need some sort of freedom. Fellas, moving forward, not only with college, with baseball, now that baseball is going to have a bubble in the postseason, Arlington will be the new home, or is the new home of the Texas Rangers, will be the home of the 2020 World Series. San Diego and Anaheim will be the bubble for the American League. And I believe it's the Dodger, or it's for the National League. I'm drawing a blank of who it will be for the bubble. I didn't
even hear that announcement, Joey. So this is actually even breaking news for me.
Yeah. I read over quickly. I know the World Series could be in Arlington. I think Arlington and Anaheim are going to be the 2 sites for the American League, if I'm not mistaken. I don't quite remember the National League though.
Yeah, so wherever it was, and yes, it was Jeff Passan to make that announcement. I believe it was actually on Barstool Sports. So he was on there with David Portnoy, and he was the one that broke that news. So with that being said, the bubbles, it's so difficult because you're basically locked in. Ian, you're an adult. You've been in this industry a lot longer.
Thank you.
No, it's the truth. You have been a lot longer than me and Pat. And you've had a paying job in our field longer than me and Pat. And this is not a dig on Pat. This is not a dig on me. This is just a fact. Your thought on Paul George with that and the possibility of that trickling over into other sports, and what you would think if you were in that bubble.
Listen, I've had family and friends that have suffered from anxiety and depression, and the way I understand it is they never, after they've recovered from it, or some still feel it, that they wish that no one in their life would ever have to feel what they felt. I can't describe it because I haven't ever felt it before. But I will say from coming from a standpoint of working in college athletics, the nice piece about coming into the 2020-2021 academic year is the fact that these student athletes will have the opportunity to defer their way out of playing the season if they so choose, and will still have their athletic scholarships honored. So even if they choose, I can't deal with it, I can't deal with what's going on with the virus, and they have all the power in their hands to say, we need to step away and this is not the right place for me. It doesn't seem like that's the option with the pros. I know in baseball we've seen it. We really haven't seen it. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that really in hockey, but we have not seen it in the NBA. I know that the NBA tried to and passed that rule about trying to get more family members and closer friends, or I forgot the wording that the NBA used when they flew people into Orlando. But with respect to the NBA, you really haven't seen a lot of that. You haven't seen guys step away because of reasons, to the fact that I can't leave the hotel, I can't leave the bubble. So I don't doubt the fact that Paul George probably feels that way. I'm sure he probably feels like a locked up person. And I'm sure it's probably put him in a situation that he doesn't want to be in. So listen, your health is paramount to everything else. I know these athletes are making millions upon millions of dollars, and you can't just tell them to suck it up because you don't know the way they're feeling. And it's their health, their family, all that stuff is paramount and comes first before everything else.
Pat, your thought on the bubble, and again, you've been in the world of sports a lot longer than me as well. So your experience, or the I would say professional hypothesis on what you would think a bubble would be like if you were in it. Would you feel the same way as PG-13?
I mean, I think it comes down to a simple point, and you could put sports aside. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all have to take care of ourselves. And it doesn't matter if you're making $30 million a year or $10,000 a year. You have to find a way to take care of yourself. I mean, on my end, you saw it in the NHL with Tuukka Rask, and his comments were rough to see because he wasn't engaged. And then you learned 2 days later that he had a concern with his kids. And at the end of the day, his kids, no matter what he's getting paid more, are more important than what's going on with the Bruins. I mean, not picking on Bruins fans, you want your starting goalie, but you also, I mean, there's more important things at the end of this year. And just making it a little personal, I mean, I think all of us could say that we've had days of work where we've had bad days or something happened at work that we don't want to talk about with coworkers, no matter how great our place of work may be, that we have people to come home to or people to talk about our issues face to face, or we have things we do, whether it be golf or go for a run, which you may not be able to do in the bubble. So you're being isolated, and sometimes you just can't talk about everything over the phone, or it's hard to get away. You're seeing the same people every day for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. If you're making it all the way, it's hard to get away from that stuff. And sometimes you need to retreat back, and you need 1 or 2 days to recenter yourself. And it's really hard for these guys to do it inside the bubble.
Yeah. Just to clarify, Ian, are you having the same issue with Patrick as I am?
No, I actually heard him the whole way through. I've actually been getting a little more freezing in the broadcast on your end, Joey, than I have with Pat.
Okay. All right. We're just making sure there. So as long as everyone did hear that, that is a good thing. Pat, if you don't mind, just for my sake, if you could just finish your or just repeat your last sentence, if you don't mind.
All right. Where did he leave off at? I was just saying, at the end of the day, if you're going through stuff, I know for me, I like to play golf or go out and go for a run. There are things where you're out inside the bubble you can't do. So sometimes it's nice. You take 1 or 2 days to retreat, recenter yourself, get your mind right to go back to work the next day. And unfortunately for these athletes, they do not have the opportunity to do that, where for 4 weeks to 6 weeks, they're just straight going to work. And though they may work with great people, seeing the same people every day can take a toll on you if you're going through some stuff.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. You need to see, and we're all human. We have to do, we have to see others. We got to talk. We got to do whatever it may be in order to keep moving forward. So, fellas, one last thing before we do wrap it up. I want to go back. I want to go back to hockey for a quick second, because this is just funny to me. And you know, I can't stand Toronto. So here, this is what I'll throw in there anyway. For those that know me, you know, I'm like a little child when it comes to Toronto and to the Maple Leafs. But they also traded Kasperi Kapanen to get some cap space. And the way it looks is that that's not their only move. One quick hit, Ian and Patrick. I want to know your thoughts with Toronto and where that number 15 pick could potentially go.
I know where you know it's going to go, and I think it may be similar. It's going to Arizona, and I don't think Toronto's a place to fall, and I think Arizona, unfortunately, is a mess right now, and it's going to be very hard to sign Taylor Hall with their punishment, and very tough there. But I like what Toronto doing good deals. It just doesn't come together, and I don't know if OEL is a good place fit for Toronto, because you have so many superstars. How many times can you have so many superstars together and they can't get it together for the playoffs? I'll keep it short because I know we're short on time, but my whole thing is you could trade for another big name, but getting big names in Toronto hasn't done anything for you in most recently.
Ian, your thoughts?
I'm going to go from the other side and talk about Pittsburgh. I think for the Penguins, I mean, the trade just shows, I mean, this is a team that's also strapped for cap space, and we have no idea what the flat cap's going to look like next season. You're still paying all your big players big money, and now you're bringing in another former prospect of yours that you traded to Toronto in the Kessel trade, and now you brought back because you're trying to make one final run at it. You know, and then on top of that, there's talk of the Penguins also trading one of their goaltenders. So, you know, what is the flat cap going to look like? You know, how much money are they going to have, especially as it goes back to acquiring Kapanen? Because, I mean, obviously Toronto cleared cap space, but as a result, it's really tightened up now. Pittsburgh's lack thereof of cap space. So I know they're trying to, after going out in the first round the last 2 years, to try to make one final run. I don't know if this was probably the right move for the Penguins, but they're trying to make one final run at it. But I can only imagine what their cap space is going to look like after this year.
Well, in terms of Toronto, that's all. So with that,
salty John Tavares fan, right? Is that what that is, Joey?
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is correct. So as we have been doing about a few months ago, we stopped last month, or we went on hiatus, if you will. That was season 1. Season number 2 of the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by Streamyard will return with a new name on Monday, August 31st at 8 p.m. when I welcome in the voice of the Ottawa Senators on the radio, TSN 1200 up in Ottawa. That is a really old pick, an old picture of Dean Brown, who is their voice and has never missed a game for the Ottawa Senators since 1992. So that's pretty cool there, obviously, with Jason Spezza. But also, do not forget, as we have not made this public. I did tell Ian, though, on Thursday, we will be welcoming the voice of Madden NFL, of the Madden NFL series, Brandon Gaudin, also known as a Fox Sports and Westwood One broadcaster. That is Thursday night, September 3rd at 8 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer and the I-95 Sports Network. Going to be tons of fun. Also, folks, just to let everyone know, we are running a promotional giveaway here on the Eastern Observer. Would you like to win a Matt Martin puck? I am sure that Ian Schreier and Patrick McCormick do not want that ugly grossness in their homes.
I love the Brooklyn puck.
But hey, listen, someone else might want it. So you have your instructions there. Follow us at the Eastern Observer on Twitter and or at the Eastern Observer on Instagram. On Twitter is at Observe Eastern, or follow us also on Facebook at the Eastern Observer, and show us how you are enjoying the playoffs this summer by sending us a photo. That'll be pretty cool. And also, for those that are wondering, we do have the ability to give out college credit here. So for those that are looking for an internship, we're looking for writers, we're looking for podcast hosts, we are looking for social media interns as well, along with audio and video editors, podcast hosts, producers, camera operators for I-95 Sports Network as well. Please do not hesitate to slide into our direct messages. Ian, Patrick, I cannot thank you both enough. Amidst everything that's going on here, a little bit of inclement weather, the internet being a little porous on my end, and really, really happy that it is a new day on the Primetime Rundown, episode number 31. And now we're going to see you guys a little bit more often here, and I can't wait to have you guys back on moving forward, a little more than every other or every few weeks.
Like I said, Joey, it's really a pleasure to come on and talk sports with you guys, and I've known Pat a long time, so it's great to talk sports and have Pat here with me as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. Thank you so much as well.
Joe, it's really fun to come on and do it whenever you need me. If I'm free, I'm on.
Going to be tons of fun, folks. All right. So, again, for all of us here at the Eastern Observer, the Blackjack Media Group, the I-95 Sports Network, Ian Schreier, Patrick McCormick, I'm Joey Jarzinka. We'll see you next time.